Welcome, everybody, to the Silk City podcast. It's great to have you. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, really. Today is a great day. We're at ANJ Studios here in Upton Plains, New Jersey. We have Santiago behind the glass. Andrew, how are you today? He gave me the good nod over there. Glad to see you. And in the studio today from Saiber, attorneys at law. She's a family attorney, and not just a family attorney, a great family attorney, Stacey Cozewith. How are you today?
Hi, good. Thanks, Paul. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. I'm glad to have you. It's so awesome. I feel like what you do is one of those things where, you know, people have certain perceptions about family law attorneys, but
it's messy.
What they think is they don't look at it that way. They look at you as a quote unquote divorce attorney. So what ends up happening is they feel they only can use your services in a divorce, and we're here to dispel that. We're going to talk about some of the other things where the family law attorney can come into play. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I'd like to play a game with you. Is that okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, because really what I would like to do for you guys out there is I'd like to give them an opportunity to get to know you a little bit more. So we're going to play yes, no, either or. It's a game where I'm going to ask you fire some rapid fire questions at you. And depending on your answers to these questions to everyday topics, yes, no, either or answers, we'll get to know you a little bit better. So,
does anyone ever ask you these questions?
You know what? You're more than welcome. Yes, you can fire them back at me. It's okay. And I would gladly answer them for you because I feel like that's fair. You know, many people have sat in the chair right there, and I get to ask all the questions.
Right.
But do I ever get to answer them and let our audience know? It's maybe not. If you can think of it, you can ask me. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay. Please place your trays in the upright position and prepare for impact. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Horror movies, yes or no?
No, too much anxiety.
I know you need, like, when the attorney goes home, you just want kind of like...
Yeah. I used to be able to watch horror movies when I was younger, but now, I guess as a mother and working, I just, I can't.
Absolutely. Hallmark Christmas movies, yes or no?
There's not that many Hanukkah movies. I'm Jewish, so it's not really. But I do like the rom-com, and a lot of those are, romantic comedies. So some of them are good. Some of them are just too cheesy.
Absolutely. Sushi, yes or no?
Definitely.
Beef jerky, yes or no?
No.
It's kind of gross, right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Cream cheese or butter?
On what?
Oh, does it matter what?
Jelly?
On a bagel? On a
jelly.
bagel? Jelly on a bagel?
Yeah.
So if I look at such things and I understand the statistics behind that, and if you are asked the question, butter or cream cheese, and you say jelly, you're like a one percenter. And
strawberry jelly, to be specific, and forgetting down to the details.
No doubt about it. And this because, like Andrew, like we were talking off the air, Santiago and me, it's like you go to the quick check and you check out and you look at the roll bin with the rolls in there, and you see there's like 100 rolls with butter, and there's like 2 in there with jelly. You're like digging through, and you're like, man, nobody likes jelly. I happen to like it too.
Yeah,
you should try it. Jelly on a Portuguese roll with the cream cheese or with the butter.
That I could do too.
Yeah, me too.
Gotta have the jelly.
All right, Taylor ham or pork roll?
Neither. Ew, no.
No, but which is it? How do you say it?
Definitely Taylor ham, but
because of where we are, right?
North Jersey.
Right. So that brings.
It's not hoagies. It's subs.
That's right. That's right. So Jersey girl. So all right, let's dispel this right now. Central Jersey, yes or no?
No. I grew up in Somerset County, and so some people say it's Central Jersey, and it is absolutely not. I grew up in Northern Jersey.
We claim you in North Jersey. Okay. Disco fries, yes or no?
No, I like fries with ketchup, maybe truffle, seasoning.
These are the Jersey questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Burger, mayo or ketchup on a burger?
Ketchup, mustard, lettuce, tomatoes, sauteed onions, medium rare.
Oh man,
so good.
It's like you've rehearsed. It's like you've rehearsed that answer.
No.
So the thing that's really weird is not really weird, but attorneys, they eat hamburgers.
Absolutely.
You obviously like hamburgers. We can tell from your answer. Okay, Italian food, yes or no?
Yes.
Knicks or Nets?
Knicks.
Vodka or tequila?
Vodka. I Flavored vodka, raspberry Stoli is like the go-to. Raspberry Stoli and soda.
So you know what they say about tequila, right? Nothing ever good ever happened after you had the tequila. Santiago with the big grin behind the glass. Airplane or train?
Oh, airplane.
Swim in the ocean, yes or no?
100%. Grew up on the Jersey Shore, Belmar. I'm in Long Branch now. Love it.
And there's no sharks up here.
No.
Pet birds,
maybe
yes
some
or
garbage, but
hypodermic needles? No. Pet birds, yes or no?
No.
Giants or Jets?
Giants.
Snapchat, yes or no?
The only reason why I have a Snapchat app on my phone is because my kids like to make funny faces. It's kind of fun. The filters. So I'll use Snapchat filters, but then take a regular photo, you know?
Yes.
The filters are key, especially when you get to a certain age. They're huge.
Ever been arrested?
No.
Ever been ghosted?
I'm too old to be ghosted.
Netflix and chill, yes or no?
Why not? Yeah.
Getting personal here, Santiago.
Seriously, for sure. Why not? And I know what it means.
So you're going in. All right. So you got, listen, divorce attorneys, right? So I'm going to divert from this for just 1 second. Has Snapchat or social media, but Snapchat in particular, ever caused or ever been subject of the divorces that you handle?
No, certainly social media for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cases where you think either one party's cheating on the other, or
Right.
you're looking at the lifestyle. Look, he's telling me he's unemployed and he's going to these clubs and he's taking out these women and he's
Goes to
posting all
Dubai
these-
every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Or, in other circumstances where they're cohabitating, I'm paying alimony to my wife and she's, saying she got married, or she is, attending all these events with this guy. Why am I still paying alimony? So definitely social media, you gotta be careful.
All right.
Everything you put in print, it can be discovered.
Introvert or extrovert?
I'm definitely an extrovert. I love people. I love to be around
get out of here,
people.
Stacey. I don't believe her
Yeah.
for 1 second. Fried chicken or grilled chicken?
Grilled.
All right. Skydiving.
I would love to. I've never done it. But yeah, why not?
Ever had stitches?
Yes.
Ever caught a fish?
I don't think so. I get motion sick. I'm not a big boat person.
Okay.
I'll go out on the boat with you, but then, we can go to a restaurant on the boat, but then I may take a cab home, which I've done many times because
Okay.
I just can't.
Got you.
It's a little too much.
Are you going to come on the social with us at the Greenwood Lake Marina?
Like I said, I might have to bring my bathing suit to come back.
All right.
But I'll go out.
All right.
I'll go out, have a drink. And
Hotel or Airbnb for you?
Hotel.
Socks or bare feet?
As long as it's cold, which it is now, socks all the time.
All the
That's
time?
the first thing to get cold. You're so much colder without socks. But in the summer, I can go outside bare feet for sure.
You have good feet?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're cute.
Good. Love or money?
Love, for sure.
Sushi or hibachi?
Sushi, hibachi, especially when you have curly hair. You don't have this issue. You walk away from hibachi, the food is great. You stink.
Oh, you're like a
You
hibachi
feel
bomb
you
walking
wash your
around.
hair. You got to all the clothes.
Yes.
My kids love it. It's fun. It's a good time. But
Yes.
it's got to be on a hair wash day.
Yeah, I got you. No doubt about it. Couple more here. New car smell or baby's head smell?
Oh, baby's head smell for sure.
I think so. I think all the
Yeah.
girls say that.
Yeah.
Talk to yourself, yes or no?
Yeah, why not?
Ever lied about your birthday to receive a free dessert?
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Do you hit your kids' Halloween stash without them knowing?
Oh, yes.
Do you watch the news?
I do. I tend to read the news more than I watch it just because of my schedule, but I definitely read or watch something every day. For
Ding,
sure.
ding, ding. Attorney question. Know how to send a fax?
I used to.
Is your desk messy?
It's an organized mess. I have piles. I'm a big piles person. So
Okay.
each case has a pile. And then so we have I have a big desk with lots of piles.
Okay. And if it came down to it and I called you up, and like we said before, when the guests come on the show, it's not the first time we see them. When they're sitting across from us, and Santiago knows this because he's been a guest on the radio show, or going to be a guest on the radio show. We actually get together and we do things. And I want to get to know my guests in such a great level because I feel like it really contributes to a great podcast. It contributes to great radio. And
So you're
Stacey,
saying you only spent time with me because you wanted the podcast?
no, we're still good friends, Stacey. Like, in addition to like going to lunch, we went to lunch the one time. We went and had coffee at that coffee place. I got a ticket while I was there.
Oh, no,
I didn't tell you about that.
I could have fought
I
it
keep
for
forgetting
you.
to I keep forgetting to pay for it. So maybe you'll represent me in court one day
Seriously, that's not good.
when the
They take
police
attorneys first. So
knock
I can go
at
with
my
you.
door. Yeah, exactly. Like we went skeet shooting the one time, and we were like shooting those things, and then we went to the petting zoo, and I learned a lot of stuff. And I feel like when people deal with the attorneys, right, they have a certain perception about you. They think you're like ultra over the top, like serious. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But the perception is there.
Right.
Tell me and tell our listeners what it's like to be an attorney, and when people learn that about you, what are some of the things that they think about you?
Well, I got into specifically family law because I wanted to help people. Prior to law school, a lot of my jobs were political, but working with constituents, your local representative, and you would go to your local representative to help you with certain issues. And so I did that, and I, was interested in the law, was interested in law school. And thereafter, everything kind of drew me to family law. And it was my desire to make things better for people and help them along the way. I didn't want to just sit behind a desk and work on paperwork. I wanted to really affect people's lives. And so I think when people meet me and they talk with me, they really get that sense. I'm empathetic. I understand what they're going through, and I want to make it better for them. I certainly want to do so. And, some people will be like, oh, she's so nice. She's so sweet. But that should never be mistaken for if you wrong me, you don't want to be on that other side.
So so you said that, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because I get that feeling from you. Right. I don't know why that is. Like, you're such a nice. So folks, again, like I said, we went skeet shooting. We went to the petting zoo. Like, she's a nice person. Like,
I am.
So, but I also know from dealing with talking to some of your past clients who we can't talk about, but that you're like a bulldog. Like, you could, because one of the, well, you know what it is? Like, I feel like one of the things about being an attorney, and when you get your attorney, right? I feel like you want to have an attorney who is not afraid to go to court if need be to litigate, right?
100%.
But and the reason for that is because you don't want every single, motion that you make, or, offer or settlement, whatever, you want that person to know, or the other party to know, that that is an option and you will take it there.
Right.
If you have a reputation for just, let's settle everything, right?
You're giving away the farm.
You're giving away the farm, right?
Listen, litigation is an absolute last resort. The court system is terrible. It just does not work efficiently, and it doesn't necessarily work for everyone in the manner that it should. But we don't have a choice. That's the system we have. So it's a last resort, and it's there because you never know what the other side is going to do. If they sit on their hands and they refuse to cooperate in the divorce process, well, then we have to move forward. We can file for a default. Our appearances in that case would probably be limited, but you still have to go to the court to seek a divorce. If one party leaves and says, F you, I'm gone, and refuses to pay the bills and contribute to expenses, well, you may have to go to court to get payment. In those circumstances, certainly we would request and probably obtain legal fees from the other side as well. But the court is there if you cannot resolve it, or if the other side is being completely unreasonable.
That's what it comes down to, is when you're doing those like tedious kind of back and forth, volleys of ideas and negotiation tactics and things like that. What the other attorney knows about your attorney is like a big deal. Never think that it isn't. And then in terms of
just on that point, Paul, like, it varies county by county, but it's in the high 90 percentile of cases that actually settle and are not tried. Now, some cases settle prior to even going to court, and some cases settle the day of trial, but they settle. And my job and my goal is always to resolve it amicably through whether it's mediation, arbitration, or just me and the other attorney, or helping the parties do it themselves. But litigation is you've talked about 1%, 2%. Those are the type of cases where they're high conflict, and I'm not afraid to do that either.
So tell us, when people think of an attorney, they think about they don't understand a lot of times that there are many, many different fields of legal study and legal practice, if you will. That's the best way to put it. And they might need a personal injury attorney, right? And they
Right.
might come to you because you're an attorney.
Right.
And then within that part of things, when you're a family law attorney like you are, people tend to think that's divorce attorney, but there are so many more things involved with being a family law attorney. Tell us some of the other parts of family law. You know, there's immigration, there's child custody, there's rental stuff, whatever it is, family stuff. What else is involved in being a family law attorney other than divorce?
Family law encompasses a lot of different issues. They encompass custody, parenting time. It could deal with parties who are married, parties who have a civil union, parties who don't have any formalized relationship. Financial matters, including equal distribution, the distribution of your assets and debts, alimony, child support, the issues of counsel fees. Could also deal with grandparent visitation. A big issue is also domestic violence. When you're in a toxic relationship and there's threats, harassment, assault, the police could be involved, but it also could be an area in which you need a temporary restraining order, and I can come in and help you with that one.
Excellent. So we've all seen like the mobster movies where, you know, like the mobster's like, he's not happy. The wife is not happy with the life of crime, life of ill repute, right? So she wants to get a divorce or whatever, right?
In Jersey? We're talking about mobsters?
Well, that's why it's relevant because we're in New Jersey. But like the mobster gets the whiff that, the wife is maybe like thinking about divorcing him, right? So what does he do? He goes and he talks to all of the prominent family law attorneys. Now, is this wives' tale? No pun intended, or is this like a real thing?
So it is a real thing that people do. I do not recommend you do it. So when you do speak with an attorney, you've now conflicted out the other side, which is the whole point. However, as if I represent you, I want your spouse or significant other, whoever else is in the case, the other party, to have good representation, because I want what I'm telling you to also be told to your partner what the law is. Yeah. Because if I have someone, let's say someone hires an attorney who maybe doesn't really do family law, isn't familiar with the laws, doesn't know what a judge is going to do, and says, oh, you're not going to have to pay alimony, you're not going to have to pay child support, you're going to get full custody, sole custody, no problem. Then here I am saying, absolutely not. That's never going to happen, because even though we want to stay out of court, what a judge is going to do, what the law allows, is our barometer when settling, right? So it doesn't make sense for them, if they have a poor attorney, it's going to be a long and lengthy process. Whereas if they have an attorney who says, this is what you're going to have to pay, this is the range of reasonableness, this is what it's likely to happen, and I'm saying the same thing, well, then we can more easily settle.
People also feel and think about, Lynn, you know what? I love movies. A large part of my life is studying and watching movies, and so I know
movies.
And I've been and I'm divorced also, like I mentioned before. Before I was divorced, if you said to me divorce, or you said the word to me, divorce.
D-word.
You know what I think about? I think about, like, and some people out there think about too, is War of the Roses, that movie where they had to basically like draw a line down the middle of like the kitchen per se, in order to be able to cohabitate in the same home. And then on top of that, that's a big issue when you talk about like divorce and family law, is cohabitation and the rules that like surround that.
Right.
Is this an accurate stereotype of divorces?
Well, when I said before about the very hotly contested cases, that 1% to 2% of cases that are tried, maybe a little bit more, again, varying county by county in New Jersey, those things like that do happen. Maybe not exactly like the movie, but people get nuts. If you have some mental health issues and you go through a stressful situation, that is just magnified, and you can go a little crazy, right? And so that's what happens. You never thought this person that you married could end up like this, and you could be at each other's throats. Hopefully I try and steer my client, and I give them advice and say, look, You have to look at what's going to be good for your kids, if you do have kids, or what's going to serve you better down the road. You got to let this go. We're going to focus on this issue. But they get very hotly contested, and it's my job to navigate through the process and try and diffuse as much as possible, because I don't want to just voice the maybe unreasonable expectations or unreasonable positions taken by a client, or I want to focus them and instead champion what I think should be done and how my client and I have agreed we want to proceed.
That being said, what is the, without, I don't want to buy client attorney privilege. Ooh, I don't want to buy, I don't want to buy, I don't want you to, I don't want to get you in trouble, but right. Can you tell us what the most unbelievable thing that one of your clients had happen to them, or they did, or something that you had to bail them out of? Give us something salacious.
I mean, I've had cases where there's whole separate families in another state.
Get out.
And why would anyone do that? I don't know. I mean, why do you want that stress?
I don't want more than one family.
No.
Santiago, you want more than one family? No, we don't want more than one family, but that happens.
That happens.
You say it happens to me, that's 1 in a million. That's not 1 in a million.
I don't know the statistics on it, but certainly I've seen it.
What do you got to do for a job to afford that?
A lot.
You know what I mean?
You got to own a lot of businesses to afford that in both states.
So now Stacey's an attorney, right? And your husband's a doctor.
He is.
Yes, he's a surgeon.
He is.
Right?
He's an orthopedic surgeon.
So you might be the only family where one of you can actually afford to have two families.
No way.
If you want two families out of it, but no, right? I mean, but that's pretty wild. You've had that happen.
Yes.
To your client.
Yes.
What do you do?
I mean, you get divorced.
No, obviously you get divorced.
You get out of Dodge.
Obviously you get divorced.
But it's messy and complicated, and
that's not a $7,000 divorce.
Oh no,
that's a lot more. That's that's unbelievable.
That's probably a few years.
We're gonna get more into that. Okay, so let's talk stats for divorce, because we've all heard the stats. 50%, right? But as of 2024, the U.S. divorce rate has remained between 40 and 50% for first marriages, though the number's been declining over the past few decades. And I almost maybe want to get your opinion on, why that might be. If I had to guess why that is, it's because the landscape of a divorce in general has changed so much. And because of the climate that we're in with cost of living, and and especially here in New Jersey, you're going to get a divorce. There's a lot of couples out there, a lot of people who are married who simply cannot afford to get a divorce based on the fact that where they're going to live, in separate, having to pay what they had in their marriage and alimony and all this stuff. What do you think?
Well, that's several questions in one. The first question, I'm used to complicated questions.
No problem.
The first question with why the stats are the way they are, I think people are intentionally getting married later in life. I think that is part of it. They're, they're moving away from maybe the traditions of getting married young, and I think that they're being more intentional in their spouse. But it's very difficult to get a divorce. More so difficult the smaller the pool of finances are, because you're moving from one household to two, and that's very a lot more expensive. A lot more debt is going to be incurred. I find that though a lot of people who come to me, whether they make $1 million, $2 million, $100,000, $200,000, 60,000, 80,000, whatever bracket they're in, people spend everything they make.
Right.
And unfortunately, the savings component isn't there. And so it doesn't really matter the size. Of course, the income coming in matters, but the size of the what they're living on, because they can't live on it no matter what level they're living on. It's just impossible going forward. And so, we're creative. I have to be creative. In who's going to get what, how we're going to buy this out, whether it's over time we make payments, whether, we just have to look at the circumstances and figure out the best way to divide everything.
So on average, a marriage that ends in divorce lasts 8 years, which that kind of makes sense to me in terms of context and what and superstition. Maybe they say the 7-year itch, right? So 8 years, you get the 7-year itch. It's like a year later you're divorced, right? So 8 years is what they're saying, and that's according to the U.S. Census. This number, though, varies significantly on a lot of factors like age, education level, geographic location. Is there anything about New Jersey that makes divorce more difficult to traverse than in other states?
I think each state has their own issues, right? So in New Jersey, we went through a large period of time where we didn't have enough judges, and we're still suffering from them. I mean, 60 to 70 judges at any time, because we have the mandatory retirement age, so they're constantly leaving us. And so if you go to a county, like for example, Passaic County, you are waiting years sometimes, and it could be a simple divorce. Now, if you've resolved everything, you can easily get divorced. But if you haven't resolved anything, you need a judge to make a call on any issue. You're waiting a long time. So I don't, in terms of the areas and New Jersey as a whole, I think that probably everywhere has the same issues.
It's like motor vehicle, just takes a longer time. There's like more people here. There's like more difficulties. I feel like it's like anything else in the microcosm of an industry or a culture or whatever. So let's talk second marriages and divorce. Because, while the rate of a first marriage divorce is between 40 and 50%, the likelihood of divorce between second marriages actually increases around 60 to 67% of second marriages.
When do you say maybe it's you, right?
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that. But the trend's even more pronounced for like third marriages. And that's when it becomes like, is it you or is it, when somebody tells you, when you're like Ross Geller, and you're like sitting across and they laugh. Everybody loves Ross Geller. Yes. But the thing is, the guy's been married like 7 times. And at what point are you tarnished?
What point do you pivot?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What point do you like consider the opposite sex, Stacey, where you're like, I don't know, like maybe you try the,
you didn't like my joke though?
No, I did. But to be honest, it went over my head. It went over my head.
The Friends episode pivot.
Oh,
with
yeah.
The couch.
I'm exposed. I'm exposed over here. I'm in my,
one of the best episodes.
Yes. These statistics highlight the challenges that come along with like blended families.
Yeah.
Right. And managing more complex financial and emotional situations in later marriages. And I'm also, this is me too. I'm engaged. My fiance,
Congrats.
Wendy, beautiful girl, we love each other. Problems are the external things like, the families that are, less accepting of, somebody in these second marriages. And so I feel like there's like even bigger stresses, and the reason I bring it up, any different challenges when you're talking about dealing with somebody who's getting a second divorce?
The challenges are, you have to figure out what was, as in every divorce, you figure out what are your assets, what are your debts, and those pool of assets, right, were cut in half at some point for the first divorce, and now the second divorce. So they're going to be, anyone who's getting a divorce a second time is going to be very sensitive and very careful, because they're going to reflect and say, oh, what mistakes did I make last time? I want to make sure I don't make it this time. And that's a good thing. They're going to know a little bit about the process, and that's a good thing. But sometimes knowledge is power. Sometimes too much knowledge is not, it gets things complicated. So, but, it's the same issues. But like you mentioned, it's really the kids, the kid issues are, because when you come in and you're a step parent, you could have been a step parent for 10 years and 10 very important years of a child's life. And then you go get a divorce, but because you're a step parent and they have another parent biologically, you don't have rights to custody or parenting time. That's solely subject to the biological parent. And that can be very tough. I've been in those circumstances where, hopefully the parties look at what's in the best interest of the child and ensure that relationship can continue. But those families that you had prior to the marriage, that can be a hiccup.
And I feel like So in our day and age, I don't want to cast aspersions on generations or anything, and I don't want to be like that guy, right?
Oh, those
He,
millennials.
he's like oh, the kids today, they don't know. But the thing about the kids today is a lot of them are looking forward to what they get, what they're gonna get, and they're more
They
like,
need it
well,
because they can't afford a house.
I was about to say that, like, when
Yeah.
I was growing up, that was never an issue for. I never thought even one time. To be honest about it, I never thought even one time about what my
Inheritance.
parents were going to
Right.
leave me.
Right.
I never
Right.
even for 1 minute thought that I had any say on what happened with my parents' house or things like that. In today's day and age,
They
these
do.
kids,
Yeah.
they're meddlers.
They are.
They feel like they're entitled to have their parents' house and their equity in their house and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like this is maybe a big contribution to the numbers being as high as almost 70% for like a second marriage, because they can, some of them can be such a toxic force in their relationship.
It's not a marriage between the two people. It's between two people and their kids.
Yeah, you're marrying your new spouse, but you're also marrying their toxic kid who is like set on taking all their parents' equity. This rearing its ugly head in your world?
I'm sure. I see that all the time. Unfortunately, I've seen circumstances too when the kids get involved and maybe, it's an older couple and maybe one party's lost their mental faculties and they step in and say, okay, well, you wronged me in terms of a business, maybe relationship that we have. And you said that you kicked me out of the business. Well, now I'm going to have mom divorce you. And I'm going to represent her. So I've seen circumstances like that too. It is terrible. I always say you don't wish divorce and these type of circumstances on your worst enemy, because it is a terrible thing to go through, but you don't have a choice in many times. So you have to, certainly get legal advice so that you do it the right way and you know exactly what you're entitled to. But, you try and get in and out as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible.
So a notable trend on the rise now is what they call gray divorce, and which refers to divorce among individuals aged 50 and older. So I'm 55, so I think I wasn't even 50 yet when I got divorced, but even now, if I was to get divorced at 55, I wouldn't consider it to be a gray divorce.
Right.
When I think of gray divorce, I think about that couple who's in their 70s and their 80s who you would think that they're past the point of no return, right? How many times you hear they complain? They're like, listen, if I'm in this for this long, I'm in it for the duration.
You're married for 50 years or more. You think you've settled into your ways. And even if you don't get along, you aren't that happy couple, you kind of do have your own separate lives.
But it happens.
It does.
It happens. So what are the challenges unique to a gray divorce that maybe aren't in a consideration in a regular divorce?
Well, first, if someone comes to me and either there is some illness present in one of the members of the couple or they're just older, you have to be very careful, because once you file a complaint for divorce, you're no longer entitled to what's called elective share. So elective share is under our New Jersey statutes, where if you're cut out of a will, let's say, for example, husband dies and someone whispered in his ear on his deathbed, had him change out his will and no longer has the wife named as beneficiary, and wife can still claim an elective share against that estate of 1/3. Once a complaint is filed, that wife can no longer claim that elective share.
So this is like the type of thing where it's like, hey, honey, we're getting a divorce, and then the next day she wins the lottery and wins $150 million, right?
But then,
is that is part of it?
So you just have to be careful, because if you die and the one party is deceased pending a divorce, it could be very messy. We have recent statutes in New Jersey that still call for equal distribution, but it's labeled as the black hole. So you really don't want to go into that black hole, even though you'll still get your share of assets. Alimony is no longer a thing. Child support's no longer a thing. So you just want to make sure that if you're going down the road when couples are older, they're going to be, as much as you can, understand that if something should happen during the process, what the ramifications are.
And that brings us to the financial implications and impact of divorce. The financial cost of divorce in the U.S. varies widely, depending on complexity and stuff like that. According to Forbes, the average cost for a divorce in 2024 ranges from $7,000 to $15,000. And I mentioned this to Stacey off air, and she was like, "What? That's like cheap, right?" But all right, so that gives you an idea. But this figure can increase significantly in high conflict cases or those involving substantial assets, and additionally, the economic consequences can be long lasting. I mean, many divorced individuals report a decreased income, instability in living, in housing, financial security post-divorce, things like this. Is divorce sometimes a be careful what you wish for exercise?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, financially, it has huge ramifications, like you mentioned. So let's say you took time off the workforce to raise your kids, and now you're getting divorced. They're going to impute with you with income, meaning they're going to assign an income to you, whether or not you work or earn that income, but an income they think that you should be able to earn for purposes of alimony and child support. It's not going to be zero. So you're going to have to change your whole lifestyle, change everything. But you know what? If you're in a toxic marriage or you're a victim of domestic violence, you're going to, like we discussed, love or money, your happiness, for sure, happiness over money, at 10 out of 10 times. But there are financial circumstances and you have to be prepared. Often the spouse who maybe took time off the workforce doesn't have any idea about the finances of a marriage. And so you need to prepare yourself. And that's why it's important you speak with an attorney and understand, what documents should I be looking for? What documents should the mail's coming in. Now, I don't want you to take the mail, but maybe take a picture of maybe your tax returns. That would be important, figure out what's going on in this case before you broach the topic of divorce. Because once you broach the topic of divorce, most people are going to say, well, I want to keep everything and I'm not going to tell you about anything, which obviously I'll find it. Don't worry, I'll find it out. Mm-hmm. It's far easier to have a better picture going into the case. And so, it's a tough circumstance, but normally no matter what the circumstances are and what the finances are, that freedom and that happiness is worth it.
Education plays a key role in the likelihood of divorce, and individuals with a college degree are 30% less likely to divorce compared to those without a degree. So it would seem that higher education often correlates with better communication skills, better financial stability, and a delayed marriage, which is what you said, delaying marriage to a later time.
Right. You're more intentional about it. You're older. I mean, when I know my parents got married young, and when they got married at 21, I couldn't imagine getting married, let alone having, kids or younger. I just wasn't mentally prepared, and I don't know if they were more mature than I was, but you have to be mature and understand the decisions you're making and make sure that there is compatibility. And I think that whether, when you're younger, maybe you're rolling the dice a little bit or have different dreams and aspirations. And as you get more mature and more realistic, you realize what you're really looking for in a partner.
Goes back to that 40 to 50% and talking about that number declining over time, because like you said, my parents too, my parents were very young, 19 or 20 years old when they got married. And certainly you could argue they're a baby. What the hell do you know at 19? Certainly I'm
still
20,
going to be supporting my kids when they're 19, I'm sure.
Well, I got 25-year-olds that can't even flick light switches off, right?
It's still at 25.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't bode well for my kids.
No, listen. No, you love your kids no matter what, no matter whether they leave stuff in the toilet, whether they don't close cabinet doors.
Boys are so gross.
It's not just boys. It's not just boys. It's girls too. Come on, Stacey. Let's not make this a gender thing. But the thing is, like with the education level, like maybe when we're dating, there's like the dating application should have like the checkbox on it, like do you have a college degree? And can I see it? You know what I mean? Because that's going to foretell maybe the successes of the relationship. What about that?
I think that it's more the age. That's where I'm going. I think a college degree is great. I loved being in college. It was the time of my life. Had a wonderful college experience at Johns Hopkins University, despite the name and reputation. I had a great time and a good education. But, I think it's more just having that life experience and dating and figuring out what you like, who's compatible. I think that if you're looking for somebody who went to college, I'm sure you can put that check mark, but I think that checkbook is really what you're looking for.
Exactly. And the gene pool too, Stacey. Like, let's be honest about it. I want to know what your genes are.
Listen,
can I get a DNA test on my on the first date? Here, can you lick this envelope for me? Like that's what That's what we've come to. Okay, how about
look up their ancestry?
No doubt. I want to see a whole report.
Right.
All right. So based on all those things, the other thing I'd like to know is the impact of children on divorce, because having children can delay or complicate the decision to divorce, but it doesn't always prevent it. Approximately 40% of children in the U.S. experience parental divorce by the age of 18. Additionally, the census reports that single parent households often formed after divorce are on the rise, with nearly 19 million children living with a single parent. And divorce was hard on myself and my brother, especially since I was 30 years old when my parents got a divorce. It's so hard on them when at that age. What about the impact of children on the divorce? And and more importantly, like, I want to know from you, because I should know your like legal opinion, but I want to know your personal opinion. Should I wait?
When you mentioned the 7 to 8 year average of people getting divorced, you said 7-year itch, but my mind went to, well, they're having kids after a couple of years. They don't want to, the stress is high. They don't want to get divorced for the kids, and then the kids get old enough and they can't take it anymore. That time period has a lot to do with having children. I definitely do not think you should stay in it for the kids. However, there is something to be said for people who may be married to a spouse who may be a little narcissistic, may put on a good front for others. So the psychologists will all be fooled, but behind the scenes may not be parenting in the way that you like. And so I've encountered plenty of people who say, look, if I get a divorce, I'm always only going to see my kids half the time. And I'm not going to be there to protect them from the spouse. So listen, I would never say, oh, no, get a divorce anyway. That's a parenting decision that you have to make, and living miserably until they're old enough. I can't tell someone else how to parent, but I certainly think that it's better for your kids on the whole to have two good homes where people are mentally stable and are not toxic than to be in a toxic environment.
So that's a whole other show. Is the psychological and the psychiatric, part of that, because I feel like, in today's day and age, mommy and daddy don't always make it. And how mommy and daddy communicate with each other while they're raising the children goes a long way. Is really the key to it, right?
Yes.
But you ever see the commercial where they're making fun of the Scary Movie, and there's a couple of kids and they're being chased and they're like, where do we hide? And the one goes, hey, behind those chainsaws. And then they go behind the chainsaws, and the killer is holding a chainsaw on the back, and he rolls his eyes.
I'm thinking little kids, but you mean it's like the teenagers.
No, like the teenagers. So do you ever get in that position where you roll your eyes when somebody's like, oh, like with something with the kids, like I stayed in my marriage because of my kids. You ever roll your eyes about that and say the same way you'd roll your eyes about getting behind the chainsaw? It's like, duh,
I roll my eyes more so at the people who say, I don't care how it affects the kids, because I'm kid-centric, right? I want to make sure the best interest of the kids is paramount. That's how the court would look at it. And that's just how a mom, how a human being I am, right? I want to be kid-centric. And I'll have some people say, oh, well, but that benefits my wife or that benefits my husband. And I'd rather do something that may not be in the best interest of the kids, but I don't want to do something that's going to benefit them. It's all, it's for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, you might, despite your kids, want to. And you know what?
That's when I roll my eyes. Yes. That's when I start yelling and get angry.
Yeah, that sucks.
And my clients will know it, because I don't tolerate that. That's BS, and it's not going to fly.
I'm not a family law attorney, obviously, although I may play one.
All right.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But I do know this, that you should, it's like anything really in life, I kind of feel, right? This is what I learned from my divorce and my subsequent negotiations and divorce, is that every decision that you make, you have to, go 5, 6, 7 cause and effect moves down the road.
Right.
And so when you realize that if you're going to say to your spouse, no, I don't want to give you that extra $200 a month or whatever it is, right? You should always think about how that's going to affect the children that are in the marriage, right? You could force your spouse to the brink, okay, having to sell their house, having to sell the houses. You can get your money out, all this kind of stuff. That becomes a decision that you have to make as like that dad or as that mom who's like leaving the parental home. You're sacrificing. It's a sacrifice. People don't even realize, right? Like you set yourself back like so much financially by doing that, but you realize that, if your kids have to leave the marital home, it's never going to be good for them.
Or if they don't have money for activities, to do the sports that they want, the little league, because money's so tight. It's sad. And so you'd rather sacrifice, most reasonable people, most good parents would rather sacrifice, going out to dinner a couple, times a month versus giving that child support or paying for it directly. I always, I'll try and think creatively. And if you think your spouse is going to mismanage the funds, well, then let's see how we can pay certain things directly and certain things to the spouse. So, there's always a happy medium, and any settlement, any resolution, which is obviously our first priority and our preferred way of doing things, is going to be where both parties are equally unhappy.
Stacey, that's a difficult conversation. Do you have that conversation with your clients? Will you sit your client down and say this to them?
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm talking about from the standpoint of it's your client, and your client is trying to go balls against the balls to the wall, right? And they want every last dime. Okay. Do you ever have the conversation with them to say to them, given the devil's advocate side of things, or, because there are, if people have heard of like that bulldog attorney who was just like, like in my divorce, right? After it was over, and we mediated, it was very friendly. I mean, it was absolutely amiable. But when it was over and I was outside and the attorney and my ex-wife came out of the room, the attorney was like, hey, where are we celebrating? Hey, woo, boo, boo. Like it was like this kind of thing. And I got the sense in my mind that this is just somebody who, and it really was the whole time, was like just after like the jugular, regardless, like leave somebody broken after it. I mean, is there a sense of fair play here?
Look, if my client wants to pay only a certain amount and tells me that's all they want to pay, he or she wants to pay.
Well, want and can are different.
Right. And want. And I'm going to give them the financial, the financial playbook, where I'm going to say, look, you could agree to pay $200 a month, which is, whatever it is, over the lifetime, depending on how old the kids are, right? Or you could pay me $50,000 trial retainer to try this case. What are we doing here? You don't want to throw, you want to look at things in a lens where it's your pocketbook. You're deciding, are you so hell-bent on not paying that extra $200 a month in your example, for child support, or, and I'm telling you the range that a court code order encompasses that $200. You can be as low as this or as high as this. This is generally what we could say. Or are you going to pay me? I'm happy to take your money, but I'm telling you, you're going to end up with a result that may be very similar or worse if we go to court. And so I have to have that real conversation with the client. And you know what? It's also important for me, because if they spend all this money on legal fees and we get a result from a judge, because judges have a wide degree of discretion. They're humans. They could, say, oh, you know what? She looks like, she reminds me, that wife reminds me of my aunt, and therefore I'm not saying they consciously do that, but subconsciously we're all humans, right? And so they could find in favor, despite the amazing job I did, and order maybe $300 more a month, right? And then they're going to be dissatisfied with me. So I have to have that real conversation with the client that, look, you're going into this. I may even send them a CYA email and say, look, just to confirm, you want to do this, you want to go forward and litigate this issue, as opposed to paying, somewhere in the middle what we think we can, where the mediator told us they're willing to go, for example. Not necessarily what they're asking for, but somewhere where it's a fair resolution.
Listen, the interview I'm having with you and all of the things we did beforehand to get to know each other and everything, it's been really great. But
I'm not doing goat yoga again.
No, we're not doing that.
No.
First of all, goat yoga, it's overrated.
I just don't. Ew. No, I like to see goats, but I don't want them on my back.
No,
I'm too.
They have French bulldog yoga too?
That'd be cute.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be cute. But
you do the yoga and you do the little snorting in your ears and everything like that.
French bulldogs.
Yeah, yeah. I have one of them, and that's why I have the bags under my eyes, because having a French bulldog is like sleeping with a running weed whacker.
Like my husband.
Does he snore?
8:30 last night. At 8:30, he's snoring away.
He now is a surgeon. He can't get himself a CPAP machine on the down low.
No, I don't know.
We got to talk.
Tough.
We got to talk. Yeah, we got to talk, because that's one. So that's one of the leading causes of divorce. The first step is like you get another room.
I love him.
Yeah, no, listen, it's obvious that you love him. He's a surgeon too, by the way. We mentioned that, Santiago. He's a surgeon. But I feel like it's such a divorce is such an ugly thing, and like we're making like kind of light of it. But really, what I really wanted to kind of impart to people, even though like this isn't about me, this is about you. Mm-hmm. This interview really, and as it's been going on, it's really obvious to me that as an attorney, like you're a good one, a great one. From all the things that I hear from people, and you're in my networking group, people have used you, and they've nothing but really great things to say, about you. I feel like people taking away from this interview can realize that when they're dealing with you, they're not dealing with like the normal attorney, right? That bougie type of attorney who is looking to, really just cause like a major accident and get the most money they possibly can. Right. It's transactional, right? And
There's
stuff like that.
Definitely those people who give us bad names.
They give you a bad name, and but I'm here to tell you that with Stacey, it's a different thing. I get that sense with you. And what I want to tell people, what I want them to really understand, some of the questions that I've asked you are really meant to highlight the fact that although divorce seems like it can be the best answer, I would urge you to really consider it hard. It comes from the grass is always greener fable and lesson in life, right? Which is that everything looks better. Right. Like when you're in it, you're having some problems, right? It always seems easier to go that way than it is to fight through it. But I'm here to tell you as a divorced person that you don't have any idea, the box, that you are opening. Right. You may think you do, but you don't. Trust me, you don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What's the buyer's remorse on that?
So it's true, but you know what? People come to me who want just information and that's important. You need to get all the information so that you can determine, is this going to be buyer's remorse? Am I looking for a green pasture that doesn't exist? You need to know what the realities are. And so you need to have a consult with an attorney and get that information. Googling it is not going to do it. But the other thing is, you could be the person served with a divorce. And that's who's coming to me too. That's, you could never in your wildest dreams imagine this is you, and here you are. Whether it's because, you're a grandparent the kids have been taken away from you and you're a psychological parent. Whether it's because you found yourself that you realize you're in the wheel of domestic violence and it's a cycle. Whether, you had a child with your, someone that you weren't married to or in a relationship with, and now they're coming and asking for custody and parent time, or they're not paying any child support, or you're served with a complaint for divorce, or your husband or your wife has totally taken you off guard and said, this is what I want. And maybe they're the ones looking for greener pasture. So I don't generally see people at the end of the day wishing, oh, I wish I didn't start this process. I don't, because people know from the beginning that this is a hard, difficult process that I don't wish on anyone, but you don't have a choice in many circumstances like the ones I just mentioned. And so you need to have proper representation, know exactly what you're in for. And I'd be the first person to tell someone who came to me, look, you can do this yourself. And I tell people all the time who consult with me, I'm like, listen, this is easy. Go on the website, get this pro se packet. You don't need to spend money on me when you're just trying to collect, let's say you already have a court order and you're just trying to collect child support and you don't have much money and you're not going to be able to collect it unless he, gets a tax refund or wins the lottery. So don't spend money on me to do that. I'm upfront. I'm realistic. I would never want to see someone put good money, after bad. But you have to understand what the pros and cons are, and I'm going to tell you them.
Sounds like the benefits of waiting just because it's difficult are not the best idea. But that's an opinion thing. So what I want to tell people and what I want them to get to know is, because I feel like if you're one of those people that you just described and you're get out of work and you go to the Quick Check. I know we keep bringing up the Quick Check, but
do you go to Quick Check?
But they know. But I do.
They know your name.
I have like I don't know, like 15,000 points saved up. So all right, quick story. I got locked out of my app, and I have like 8 people who, when they go to Quick Check, they put my phone number in there. You know what I mean? And so and then the app, so it broke down and I couldn't get in. I had the password, and they changed everything, and it was like months. And then the cashier was like, if you just call up customer service, they'll get you back in or whatever. And then I did, and I had like 15,000 points or whatever saved up. I free coffee for the next 15 years or something. That's at the amazing. Quick Check. But yeah. So anyway, I digress. But that is awesome. Having free coffee for the rest of your life.
Amazing.
And this is not Quick Check is not a sponsor of our podcast, Andrew, just so you know. You're at the Quick Check. The person who serves the papers comes up to you and they serve you.
Right.
All right. And these are divorce papers. And you're blindsided by this.
Yeah.
And of course, this is a very emotional time. You're like, oh my God, I thought that this person loved me. I thought I was spending the rest of my life, and now they want a divorce. I mean, that hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's really easy to react emotionally to that.
Right.
But your reaction emotionally could hurt you down the road in terms of what the process is going to be.
Don't put any of those emotional reactions in writing.
So
no text, no emails, social media.
This is what I want to get to, okay? Tell me, okay, because that person might be smart enough to Google this, and this person might be watching us right now, and this person might not know what to do. What's the first thing they should do?
Call an attorney. You want to make sure you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. You want to understand the process. Oftentimes one party is emotionally ready for the divorce and the other party isn't. They get there, they catch up. And it's okay if you're the one who isn't, who is blindsided, but that doesn't mean the process isn't going to go on. It's not going to stop. Because you're not ready for the divorce. We can, it's not a fast process most times. It's pretty slow. So you'll get there. But it's important that you have someone doing what you need to do in order to represent you and make sure that your assets, your custody, your parent time, everything is protected. Because what often happens is if you're blindsided and you're trying to reconcile and you're trying to win back your partner and the other party is already has an attorney and is already going forward, you're behind the 8 ball. You don't know anything about your assets. They could have filed a default complaint and already determined how your financial position is, your custody and parent time position is post-divorce without you. And you don't want that to happen. If you can't be present and part of the process, or even if you can, you need somebody there to help you and make sure that you're protected.
Absolutely. And I feel that's sound advice, and it's free. That's free advice. You just got people and don't, you know what, it's really like, you don't need the lawyer, okay, to tell you this. I'm going to look in the camera and tell you this from my own experience, is that don't get emotional. Okay. Don't allow, it's like any other form of communication, right? If you got a bully you're dealing with a bully,
right.
You're dealing with somebody who's aggressive, don't let your emotions dictate what you do. Okay. Go to an attorney first. All right. They'll tell you, okay, what you're entitled to. They'll tell you, Because
and what the next steps
yeah,
are.
because the last thing you want to do is like be like have
need to
Google be your attorney,
you
right?
need to go to a therapist.
Yeah, that's the first thing I'm doing. But
mental health professional, simultaneous. You have an attorney because you need that protection. You need someone looking out for you.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You don't want Google to be your attorney.
No, and people do.
I know. It's like with medical.
Google,
It's like they look at.
I mean, they can Google and find me. That's okay, but don't Google and think that you know how to, what the law provides and how to represent yourself. There's a lot of AI misrepresentation out there and all kinds of things that are not necessarily accurate.
It comes and it stems from the fact that there's a shame that's involved in it. You know? But what you need to know is that there shouldn't be shame, because chances are that every other person that you run into out there at the Quick Check is probably divorced and went through it.
Or brother, sister,
mom, aunt, uncle, whatever, right? 50%.
Or paying child support or, something, if not divorced. Absolutely.
Right? So is there any shame? We're past that. We're past where there's shame.
We're real. Real people.
And especially
real
like a dad. I feel like dads get taken advantage of. Like, I feel like I know look, fall on my sword. I mean, I wanted to be out of it.
Of your kids,
mother of my kids,
right?
my kids themselves, like, even though, and I have no money because I'm divorced, but you know what? Like, they're okay. You know what I mean? And like, I think they'll come back to you later and they'll understand and take the things that you like.
Choice of love versus money. That's what it comes down to.
But like, if you're in a divorce, right, consider this. And I'm sure you see this all the time. The ugly side of it is that, as in the divorce, you lose sight. If you're watching two people argue, okay, and if they are arguing in a way that's respectable or whatever, that's one thing. And I feel like down the road, when the emotional part of it is removed from it,
I don't know.
You look at that person and say, oh, they handled that well.
I can argue respectfully with my adversary, but I don't know that I do with my husband very well.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Emotional part. That's why you're going to do it away from the children.
But what about you? Exactly right. Because your kids, right? Like, even though in their emotional state at that point, being whatever they are, maybe you have young kids in the marriage, right? And, I've seen people like, well, I'm not going to identify the person.
Make you lose it,
but I know somebody who was in a divorce. The person was a complete malignant narcissist. They were putting stuff out on social media. They were like terrorizing them. They were like, going to court so the kids couldn't play sports and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
it happens.
It really does. You know what I mean? It really does.
People, that's what I say. You're a little crazy. You go through divorce. It just magnifies that personality, that narcissistic behavior, that complete neglect of what's good for your kids, and just desire to punish the other spouse. And that's what I do everything I can to insulate that, to protect that, to identify it. If I have the other side, and make sure that the court sees that for what it is, and make sure they get help. They need mental health help.
But make sure that if you're the person that's in the situation, that really what I'm trying to say is, like, when you're in the situation, you don't see it right.
Right.
And what you do, like the example that I use where the father was basically terrorizing the spouse, right? Like, the kids are watching this, right? And as these kids get older, okay, not only did they learn and become that as well, maybe down the road, that's a possibility, but what they do is they mature. And then they look back on it and they go, he was so bad to my mother. Right. And like, these are things that affect your relationship with your kids later on in life. You have to be cognizant of this, I feel, or else, when they get older, they're going to be like, you were a douche with mom. You know what I mean? You were not right. You were wrong. Right. They get this. So, you know what, folks, when you're in the situation, let's try to keep it analytical. Let's try to keep it respectable, right? Let's try to keep it, because that's the only way. We have our head about
friends
us.
And family.
That's
don't put it in writing. Don't put it online, and get an attorney to fight for you.
And that's Stacey Cozewith. She's with Saiber, our guest today on the Silk City podcast. I couldn't be happier to have this conversation with you. It's like something that I have that I'm, we're going to do it more. Obviously, we don't have all day to do it today, but you're going to be on the Flixpop Movie Club podcast coming up, where we're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about legal movies. You're going to be on my radio show. We're
going to talk about whether I'm Harvey or Donna, right?
That's correct. Whether you're Harvey or Donna. It's give us that a couple parting shots on this, because all we really know is like what we see on TV a lot of times. And like, I thought Suits was unbelievable. What a great show, right?
It was a great show.
And there's other lawyer shows, you know, and stuff. How like accurate are they? Because like there's always like, and you kind of like alluded to it a little bit, like in other firms, there's like all this like stuff going on, dramatic stuff, whatever. This happens, right? In
It
lawyers,
happens.
in firms.
Happens. Drama with attorneys, drama, absolutely. And you know, some of it is accurate, some of it is like so far from it. You know, Harvey goes to court like every day and argues a matter. He doesn't do a stitch of work. He sits at his desk. He doesn't write anything. He doesn't type anything.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into court appearances. Usually they're not just on the fly arguing a seminal piece of a party's case, right? But you know, it's certainly entertaining that way.
Are all lawyers that good looking? I mean, we know.
Well, in my case,
well, I was going to say,
obviously.
we know in your case, Stacey, that they're, you know, I should rephrase the question. Are all attorneys as good looking as the people on Suits and you?
No. Unfortunately, they're not that much eye candy to look at, but there are good, you know, just like the population we got, it's really about good people inside and outside. And there are a lot of good attorneys inside and outside. You know, it's important that you find those.
Can family law attorneys represent themselves in their own divorce?
Bad
idea. Is that like when you're a dentist and you need a root canal? You know, like don't do it to yourself.
Yeah, no, they make the worst clients. That's the saying. Absolutely.
So listen, Stacey Cozewith, she's at Saiber, the law firm. She's a family law attorney. Tell the people how we get in touch with you.
So you can go to our website, saiber.com, or you can find me on the website, online, call our firm. It is 973-622-3333 or scozewith@saiber.com. And I'm happy to assist with all family law needs.
Excellent. Fantastic. You've been a really great interview. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. And like I said to the people out there, definitely, if you're thinking about getting a divorce, do not take it lightly. You know, stop what you're doing right now before you do anything, before you make it any worse than it already is.
Yeah.
And call Stacey. All right. Get some information and get some peace of mind and some sound legal advice. Absolutely. So for Santiago Behind the Glass, I'm Paul Pistante, the host of the Silk City Podcast, and Stacey Cozewith. We'll see you guys next time on the Silk City Podcast.